crawl on your face when you're sleeping. Egypt is a place of mystery and secrets that will continue to stun and astonish people for millennia to come. So, here are some of the strangest things discovered in Egypt. Oldest ship ever. Yeah, we were taught that Egyptian pyramids are the earliest examples of human architecture. But guess what? This will shock you, as before the pyramids, our beloved Egyptian builders were far more advanced in irrigation and water-traveling stuff. And that's what brings us to the oldest ship found in Egypt, the Kolfi ship. The aim was that the boat would be used in the afterlife when the Egyptians passed away. Of course, we have no idea if it truly worked, but let's be generous enough to appreciate them for the effort. World's oldest cheese. They say the stinkier or older the cheese, the better. Therefore, we have to wonder if you'd eat cheese discovered buried in a 1,000-year-old tomb, since that's what's basically happened. A group of archaeologists was excavating the ancient Egyptian tomb of Bantams, a high-ranking Egyptian official, when they came across broken jars. Upon closer inspection, one of the jars was filled with a solidified whitish mess that they suspected or hoped was food, but they couldn't identify what it was. Thanks to science, it was determined that it was cheese, a 3,200-year-old that rapidly became the most ancient archaeological solid residue ever discovered. Lost Golden City. In September 2020, Egyptologist Zahi Hawass and his colleagues began an excavation in Luxor, Egypt, expecting to unearth a few antique tools, old coins, and maybe a goblet or two. But instead, they discovered the Lost City. The discovery was the largest ancient city ever found in Egypt, with researchers dating it to the era of Amenhotep III, one of Egypt's most powerful pharaohs, who reigned from 1391 and 1353 BC. Mummified babies. According to Professor Robert Connolly, who investigated the king's mummified remains, the pharaoh did indeed have children. It's just that Connolly was convinced the babies were twins of Tutankhamun. And how did he come to that conclusion? He investigated the mummy's blood. I mean, who would have guessed you could just perform a blood test on a mummy? So it turns out that poor Totten did have children, or almost had. The stone that changed the world. I'm sure you've heard about the software named Rosetta Stone, but do you know about the stone that it was named after? The Revolutionary Stone, yes. The real Rosetta is a unique historical artifact that has completely transformed our understanding of ancient languages. The legend of the Rosetta Stone has some odd people, some disputes, and a little history are all part of its discovery and place in history. Tree coffin. In 2017, while working on a project in a Zurich school district, a woman was discovered buried inside a hollowed-out tree trunk coffin that still had bark on the exterior. This wasn't the first time a burial site was discovered in the area. In 1903, during the construction of the school's gym, the remains of a Celtic man, who was buried around the same time as this new discovery was discovered, he had been laid to rest with his sword, shield, and lance. And it's more than likely that they both knew each other. Sphinx Room. Conservationists working on Emperor Nero's palace renovation in Rome discovered something absolutely unexpected in 2018. Inside a hidden underground chamber was a series of colorful animal frescoes, including panthers, centaurs, and a sphinx. Following the fire of 64 AD, which burned large swaths of Rome, the palace known as the Domus Aurea was built more than 1900 years ago. It was Nero's pride and pleasure, but it hasn't stood the test of time well. Efforts are continuing to restore it to its former grandeur, and this recent find further demonstrates how infatuated with art the emperor was. Lost Scottish Village. One of the most infamous violent occurrences in Scottish history occurred in 1692, when the MacDonald clan of Glencoe and the Scottish Highlands were massacred. It was such a terrible occurrence that it is said to have inspired the Red Wedding and Game of Thrones. But the site of the victims' dwellings remained a mystery until archaeologists began looking at portions of the valley and discovered the remnants of the little township. Researchers are hoping to unearth a treasure trove of relics by focusing on the town. Aswan's unfinished obelisk. Obelisks were massive stone constructions that were monoliths found all over Egypt, and were absolutely fantastic engineering accomplishments from ancient Egypt. The tallest obelisk of them is in a quarry here in Aswan in southern Egypt, with gigantic pillars pointing upwards towards the sun god Ra. It is still tied to the bedrock, and if finished and erected, it would have been nearly as high as Niagara Falls. It merits a spot on our list because it would have been the world's largest solid obelisk, confirming our perception of ancient Egyptians as master builders. Egypt's Abu Simbel temples. The next on our list is something that was once a mountain-sized underground secret. In the early 19th century, a young Egyptian kid led several archaeologists to a rock face near his town, where he had discovered some odd drawings uncovered by the shifting sands. The archaeologists returned to the site and began digging. What emerged was one of the most incredible structures ever built. It was carved directly into the rock face and stood at the height of a 10-story structure. It was a massive temple dating back to the 13th century BC. It's one of the greatest monuments in ancient Egypt because it's dedicated to one of the greatest pharaohs. The pharaoh was Ramses II the Great. He was the most powerful pharaoh ever and reigned for over 70 years. The whole thing was built in just about 20 years, and of course, this was long before the age of modern machinery. We're still trying to figure out how they did it. Valley of Mummies. When you hear the word Egypt, the first thing that comes to mind is a mummy. But how would you react if I told you there's an entire valley full of them? This enormous graveyard features one of the largest concentrations of dead kings. It is one of the most fascinating sites to visit, as it is located near an oasis. When archaeologists began digging there, they discovered 250 mummies. These mummies were at least 2,000 years old, and after more digging, they discovered a staggering number of 10,000 mummies. Out of caution, if you are afraid of mummies, we recommend that you never go down there. And now, let us move on to our subscriber pick of the day. This image was sent to us by a subscriber. Similarly, if you ever wish to know more about an image you come across, just send it to us. Who knows, we might even feature it in one of our videos. Subscriber pick. On a recent trip to the Great Pyramid, an archaeologist used a unique robot to explore passageways of the relic that had never been explored before. What this man discovered in Egypt stunned the entire world. The robot uncovered a hidden chamber behind a wall of unexplained